Bottom line is, by this evening you'll have, or tonight, the latest, you will have 3 additional videos uploaded, which will bring you up to somewhere around 21 videos in total already uploaded on your program. I might do 1 or 2 more, but that's it. No more lectures, no more videos. Shock, horror, delight even. And in any case, all you have and all you need will be on is now on YouTube. Connection in Moodle. So today, the couple of elements that I'm going to look at, not today, I'm just going to look at developing networks today, an important aspect of not only entrepreneurship but your professions. Also, I'll have a quick look at, if I get a chance over the next day or two, I will prepare one of the final lectures on IP and copyright, just to cover off that end of it. And essentially, that's all the material I'm going to deliver to you now. That's essentially 2 videos per week it's worked out at, on average. They're not all that long. And yeah, seriously, look at these videos when they get up there. Reflective Practice Part 1 and Part 2. They're about an hour and a bit long, each of them. They are absolutely critical, and for reasons as as I've already explained at the start of Part 1. I created a short video introduction onto Part 1 and all that sort of stuff. So there's yeah, that's all I'll say about it. Now I'm having to use my mobile phone to control this stuff today, so let's get started down to your area. And hopefully I can get all this stuff working properly. Oh, by the way, can you hear music in the background? No?
No.
You can't hear anything. Only me.
On yourself.
That's good. That's good. Right. Networks. Developing networks. Really, what this lecture is about is developing networks. It's about your networks for the rest of your careers, the rest of your lives. LinkedIn is a network. Some people are using it, some people don't. I've spoken about it before. Your classmates are your network. And you will remember this saying: your net worth is your net work. Okay? Net worth is your network. I can't emphasize that enough to you. I haven't mastered the surgical procedures where I can take an old head and transplant it onto a young shoulders or set of shoulders. You've often heard that expression. It's like trying to put an old head on young shoulders. In other words, age, experience, life. And as a consequence, we try to give you as best as possible. Look out for known as here to steer you in the wrong direction. So for most adults, we try to advise, steer, guide, counsel younger adults in the right direction, generally speaking, as I say. And a lot of this comes from your networking, how the people you associate with, the people you work with, the people you join clubs with and all that sort of stuff. That's fundamentally what this is about. So with that preamble, let's start looking down through some of the mechanics of this and what were the role of networks in building social capital. That's net worth, social capital. And sometimes I've met several people over my lifetime who are brilliant at remembering people's names, knowing this fella from that organization, this person from that place, and so on and so forth. And I literally, my jaw drops. I said, Jesus, how do you remember all this stuff and so on? It's a skill. You have to develop it. But it's always worthwhile. Some people, we used to have filofaxes, where we used to keep all this data and names and cards and little business cards and so on and so forth in work. Well, that was the old way of doing it, but interestingly, it helped us to remember. You don't have them much nowadays. But in any case, it's your social capital. It's often a case of not what you know, but who you know. Okay, in the positive sense. I'm not talking about the old bullshit, and I got a job because of somebody I knew rather than because I got a degree from AIT. Just as well I knew him. No, I'm only joking. I shouldn't be saying things like that. But yeah, it's your social capital, or the people you know. And then demonstrate the value of networks for entrepreneurs. Now, I'd even scratch out that word. It's not just for entrepreneurs. I mean, it's a nice mechanism to show the importance of networks and all that for someone that's starting out in business. But really importantly, it's about your networks for you as professionals, how you develop and grow yourselves over time. So you could replace entrepreneurs by just yourself or as a professional. And then look at the different ways of building networks, some of the benefits of virtual networking, our stuff we have here, our platforms, our applications, Facebook, LinkedIn, definitely, and all of these other places that you show your half-naked photographs and drinking pints and swinging out of chandeliers and all that sort of stuff. Paddy's Day celebrations. But ignoring all that stupidity, you do have virtual networks, and seriously, be very careful with them. Trust me. And then explain how networking can build a founding team or the founding team. That's a by the way kind of learning objective. It goes without saying, once you develop your networks, you're building extended teams and so on. So when we look at this, the most important action entrepreneurs or professionals and organization founders, team members must take is to build a network of support for their venture, for your idea, for your project, whatever it is. You build a network of support, you get buy-in, and you have the distasteful ways of doing it, coercing, bribing and all that sort of stuff, or you have people who are genuinely interested, who give you feedback, and people that you respect and listen to because you value their opinion. Those are the networks that are worthwhile to you. I mean, we all use them. I would talk to my colleagues and I would say, well, what about this module on that program? Maybe we might look at changing this. And some say, well, hang on a second, Mark, that's not a great idea because we're doing this and we're doing that. And I said, okay, but what if we change this and change that? So we work, we build out our network, and we say, well, I knew a guy down in LIT or someone else above up in Trinity or someone in DCU, and they did it this way. Oh yeah, interesting. What was it like and all this? Well, the feedback I'm getting was X, Y, and Z and blah blah blah. So that's why we've used our network, and they'll know other people and so on. So it goes beyond just the immediate group of talking about modules and programs to people that we've met before, whether it is last year or 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and they tried out something similar and how it worked and what was their experience, so we can learn from their experiences as part of our network. That's why it's so important having so the bigger the network you have, the more experiences, for example, the more knowledge and information you can tap into and avoid making mistakes or finding better ways of doing what you're about to do. Okay? So we talk about these things, being structural in terms of social capital, structural, relationship, and cognitive, and so on. That's kind of throwaway stuff. And then they have a diagram, nice circle, and so how they, it's the people how the form and structure that you might meet up with people. Is it through a sports club? Is it through organizations? Is it from going to trade shows, going to conferences, moving around within an organization. If you're dealing with multinationals, you build up networks internally as well. So then you have the different types of relationships within the networks themselves. Are they like-minded people? Are they totally different? In terms of, you might be talking to an engineer from, being an Irish engineer, for example, you might talk with a German an engineer or a Finnish engineer, and do they see things differently? And you start to collaborate and so on. So these are the kind of relationships that you build up over time, and it might be on a pure engineering side of it. Now the relational, your social capital with these are people you're working with, because within the organization it'll have that particular type of culture, and as long as you're aware of that, cognitive awareness of the culture in the organization, then you know that once you go outside the organization, it'll have a different perplexion or complexion, and it'll have a different feel to it. So you might be meeting people at trade shows or at seminars or conferences and so on, and they might have similar backgrounds and work in similar type of companies. So how you interact with those people will be different again. So these are things, as long as you're able to do that. And one of the great expressions I heard, are you able to work the room? So when you go to a conference, for example, how well do you mix? Now, I'll put my hands up and say I'm the world's worst. I actually am. I'd be the kind of person you'd find standing in the shadows. Nothing pervy about that, but I'd be the kind of person that would be standing in the background. I tend not to like the limelight as such, or any kind of attention. I actually don't. I'm an introvert. That's part of the reason for it. But I do have the wherewithal that I'm usually with somebody that is a little bit more extrovert, for example, and they can drag me in, and I have that kind of a little bit of fear initially, but once I get over it, and so on, and then by the nature of my character, I'm generally very quiet in first meetings and so on, and then I begin to open up a little bit more and so on. But that's just me. Who wants to be hearing about me? But I'm just giving you the experience of how these things can work. So if we look at these in terms of social capital, we build bonds, we connections with people who are like us, such as a families and friends, for example. That's one type of bond we have, but we don't have the same bond outside in your professional career. If you did, there's something weird going on. Learn how to play the banjo. Oh no, I'm losing that joke. But certainly when the bonds are different, there's sometimes you can get away with saying things to certainly to family and maybe to some friends that you daren't say in public, for fear of getting a 4x2 across the back of the head or something like that. But in any case, we have different bonds and so on. But how we work those and the respect we have within those bonds are important. But we can bring elements of that into our working relationships as such. And some people say, I want to work like that, and I don't want it coming into my private life and so on. So that's a fair point, but be careful. When I said to you, when you're doing PD1 and you're looking at PD2 in terms of your assessments, don't try to create this persona about yourself inside and work that when you leave the job and you get into your car and you're driving home and say, now I can relax, I'm back into the home environment and so on. So avoid that at all costs. Try and be the same person as much as possible, generally speaking. And then bridges, links that go further than simply sharing a sense of identity, such as classmates or colleagues who may have different backgrounds. Because so you have to, and you do have quite a mix of people inside in the same class. You will have in terms of economic background, cultural background, ethnicity, and so on. So when you strip away all of that stuff and see someone for who they really are, another person, gender, all that sort of stuff, sexual orientation, all that, I nearly said it, all that ology, all that other stuff, when you strip away all of that stuff, say, this is a person that, that's doing a course with me, we're doing the same thing, we have the same kind of assessments, let's pool our brains together. They're the kind of bridges you build. So you begin to tear down barriers and create bridges. That's essentially what we're talking about here, irrespective of the other person's backgrounds and so on. And then linkages. connections to people or groups further up or down the social ladder. So that's a kind of follow on from these bridges, up and down the social ladder. That's a that's a quagmire, for even for me to talk about it, because I find it hard to get my head around that sort of stuff. Just randomly picking something. If you were from Myross in Limerick, or if you were from Ballymun in Dublin, or Neilstown near Liffey Valley, perceptions are that they are some of the roughest places in the country or in the respective towns. But listen, they're some of the nicest and most decent people live there and have come out of there by the same token. So, these perceptions can cause problems, biases, in other words. We can create these biases and so on. Now, and sometimes they get propagated in social media and indeed media in general. So, try and strip away, and I don't know how. Probably the best way to relate this to, but is take people for who they are. If you get burned, if your trust is mislaid, you learn from it. Okay, and you start developing these mechanisms over time that whether you can or can't trust people or certain types of people. When we say types, character types, not social types. In any case, people come from all different walks. People come from all different backgrounds inside an organizations, and that's what we need to in terms of developing our professional networks. That's what we look at, and not because they're from such and such a part of town or they're this, that, and the other thing, and so on and so forth. Cut out all that crap. Life is complicated enough without having to try and complicate it with adding all of these other dimensions into place, because really they're just a waste of space. They're a waste of headspace, adding in all of these other elements of someone's background, age, orientation, ethnicity, and all that. It's just pure crap. Focus down, because you'll end up wasting time, and that's the one resource you can't repeat. So the values of networks, you can have private information, access to diverse skill sets, or access to diverse skill sets, and you can have power. So the networks can be quite powerful. So when you start building, for example, I worked in one organization, and I was a senior engineer by definition, or job title and so on, and there was a group of us, and I may have mentioned something similar to you before, but as a network, we had more power over all the other engineers and trainee engineers. It wasn't by status, it was by virtue of our abilities and our competencies that we were promoted to senior engineers. Therefore, we must have been good at doing what we were doing, which was the case. But in terms of a social and cultural and network perspective, we hung around together, we mixed, but we also mixed with other. We also mixed with the lesser minions. I'm joking, of course, but yeah, we worked. But we were helpful towards the other engineers and younger engineers and so on. Point I'm making is that, in terms of power, it was the unofficial organization. So when the company wanted to get some things done, they talked to the senior engineers and asked us, "Could you help us out on this?" And we need to convince them to do certain changes and processes and so on and so forth. So. And this other point, access to diverse skill sets. That's what I mean about, you guys. One thing I'd say, if I was to criticize what we do in our programs and these business enterprise modules, ideally, we should run this over 2 semesters. And you're probably saying, "Oh, Jesus, Mark, you and Willie, it's bad enough having you for 1 semester, let alone 2. But seriously, if we had you over 2 semesters and spreading it out a bit more, and similarly with the other faculties, we'd have you mixing with the design students, the engineering students, sports, and so on and so forth. So you'd have a cross section of different skill sets, and you get to understand how really effective the such diversity in teams can be in terms of coming up with ideas and so on. I mean, I'm doing the same with something similar to with in the science department, and they think differently from business students. Generally speaking, they think and the way they look at things and so on. And if we could only marry the two of you together, for example, for these types of modules, I mean, the experience would be far more beneficial to you guys. So that's having different skill sets, but you will find that certainly when you go into companies as well, that as I said to you before, products and services have become quite complex, and therefore you can't know everything. So you might have to go to other people in other departments and with different backgrounds and skills and qualifications to work on a project, for example, or bring their knowledge in onto the project. So if we look at here, critical thinking questions, I'm not into them anymore. But what are some ways in which you can use your network, your own network, to attain your goals? Really broad type question, but just to help you, think of things, you could use your network to find out information that you need for your job. Today you could probably, if you look at your teams, you might talk to other teams and see how they're doing various things. Have they had this problem, that problem? You're probably already doing that. But in any case, that's how. What's your goal? Your goal is to produce a piece of work for the end of the semester. You know how you're going about it. Maybe the way you're going about it, you might talk to her. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? What way did you address that? How do you think he's looking for this information? And how do you think Willie's looking for that information? So you might be bouncing. So that's one simple way of using your networks to attain your goals. And I'm getting stuff coming in here. Just bear with me 1 second. 99%, we're nearly there. Anyway, that's how you could use your networks. And same inside in work, when you have skills gaps, stuff that you know you don't know, then can you use your network to fill those gaps? So career support, of course, you have sponsorship, coaching, exposure and visibility, challenging assignments, and protection and preservation. So that's how your network will help you. Now, the sponsorship, not so much an issue, because that's purely talking about entrepreneurs, going to investors and all that sort of stuff and getting that type of sponsorship. But the coaching side of it, knowing who to ask. That doesn't mean that you're going to have a coach physically assigned to you inside a company. You may have a mentor, you may have a coach, if you're fortunate enough. But other people, the way they're doing things, can set example for you, and that in itself is a form of coaching. So maybe your line manager say, go over there and see how Mark and the guys are doing doing that project, or how that team down there on the other side of the building, how they're managing or working on their project. That's a form of coaching by way of demonstration and helping you to get through induction maybe, or get your first project under your belt. Exposure and visibility, again, kind of leans more towards the entrepreneurship. You need to get out there, get people to know you. Put your face out there, essentially. So people know, oh geez, yeah, this is a new kid on the block, and pretty good ideas, and so on. So people get to know you, and that's how you build your net. They'll actually come to you and say, yeah, we're interested in what you're doing there. Let's have a chat, and so on. So that's how you can actually build your network. Of course, going to all sorts of breakfast meetings, seminars, getting out there, putting yourself out there. Challenging assignments in terms of building your network. Again, knowing that you're pushing yourself beyond your own capabilities and say, right, I can only do so much. I need help on this. And that's the important thing, knowing when to ask for help and actually going out and getting it. But more importantly, knowing where to ask for help. And over time, you become better at that. You won't just ask the next bloke walking down the street, can you help me on this or so. You'll know that I expect that person over there, or such and such a person, they have a particular skill set. They'll be able to get to me quicker. And it'll be all about speeding up your access through your network to get what you need more efficiently and quicker. And then protection and preservation. Again, in the entrepreneurial world, we tend to, or they look after one another. It's like a little club, and they do protect and help people along. So your preservation, keep you going when you're feeling down and overly challenged. They'll help you. That's how they help through preservation. So that helps your entrepreneurial career in terms of the support they give you. But it's the same inside in work as well. When you have a group and a good network, you feel a little bit more confident. You know that there are other like-minded people, so you're not alone. So you're not vulnerable as such. So the psychosocial support, encouragement and emotional support, acceptance and confirmation, counseling, friendship and personal feedback. These are all the upsides of a network itself. Kind of leading on from the last point when we're talking about protection and preservation. So oftentimes your network, people within your network will know you as a person, and they'll know when you're perhaps being challenged or facing a brick wall as such, and they'll jump in. They'll run defense for you as such, but they'll certainly give you strong advice. Here was an example. Literally this morning, I rang. Hey, guess what? I'm going to mention bicycles. I rang a shop this morning looking for a particular type of tires, and and I got talking to this guy who I dealt with before 2 years ago, as it happened. And he was asking me, was I getting out much on the bike? And I said, no. I said, I'm just recovering from a knee operation, and I've been out a couple of times, but I've been taking it easy. And I said, yeah. And he said, what was wrong with the knee? And I said, it's just the meniscus was, I had multiple tears in the meniscus in my knee. And he said, and well, we got chatting. We spent about 10 minutes talking about, and as I described, he said, that's exactly what's happening with me. He said, I'm having this, and I was saying, I was gotten to the point where I was walking down the stairs, I was being extra cautious. Not that there was anything wrong, but I was afraid to put pressure at times. I said, so now the same guy is going off to see his doctor to arrange for an MRI to see if, because he had an accident 2 years ago in a car, and he said he was wondering why he was feeling this way with his left knee. He said, now how much do I owe you, Mark? And I said, absolutely not, because I had described all the symptoms, and being me, who I am, as my wife always says, I go into extreme detail. Yeah, guess. But I go into a lot of detail. But why? Because I'm sharing all the information, because some pieces of data other people can pick up on, and I just like to throw it all out there just in case they can join dots for themselves without me having to say, have you done this? These are all my experiences, and leave nothing out. Therefore, they can get a more informed opinion. And in his case, yes, he is. So it's as I said, just an acquaintance. I've only met him 3 times in my life, but we have extended networks where we can actually, like for example, him having said that to me, now I've given the name of the consultant that he can phone and set up an appointment and get an investigation done without to alleviate any possible concern, or have simple procedure done as I did. So it was that through that network. It's a very simple little thing. So anyway, the counselling, acceptance and confirmation when you're in the network, when you've proved yourself, when you join a team and you join a rugby team and you score a try and so on, you've proved yourself, you've done the job. Again, I'm sticking with my cycling, but when my nephew joined the Coney Quickstep, the first challenge he had for himself to be accepted and psychosocial support that he needed was to win a sprint stage as quickly as possible with the new team. And that happened on his second race out. So he himself would tell you that took a load of pressure off him, because now he knew that the team had faith in him, he delivered, and now they've started to build a team around him, and they're now seen as perhaps the most lethal combination, his lead-out man and Sam himself, on the pro circuit. He's definitely the fastest sprinter in the world as a consequence. But this was because of the teamwork, the way they've worked together, and getting over these, getting initially, the encouragement, the emotional support when he was under pressure and so on, how the team came around. And it was just, it's great to be at a distance and observe all of this stuff in action. Okay, because it's great to be able to talk about it and see how this, because it works. That's the whole point about it. How these mental states can affect people, and it's the same inside in business. You want to be accepted. You want to be seen that you're good at your job. You need the feedback. You need personal feedback or professional feedback. You don't need it every 5 minutes of the freaking day, for heaven's sake. But you like to know occasionally that what you're doing is being appreciated and feeding into the bigger picture. So role modeling, behavior to emulate, work ethic and values, and inspiration and motivation. Now, quite a loaded kind of 3 bullet points. But all I say on this is, I mentioned to you before when we're talking about leadership skills, and most certainly when we're looking at the 3 M's: mission, mentor, and mirror. Okay, so what's your reason for being your mission? The mentor part is this, the role model. So all the advice I'd give you on this one is, be careful who you select in companies as your role model. You might meet Mark in a company and you say, "Jeez, he's very popular. He's a gas man. God, he's well in with everyone. All this sort of stuff. I'm going to be like him, and crack jokes and have a bit of crack and so on and so forth." Mark could be the biggest gobshite you'll ever meet. He could be the actual village idiot. Seriously. So you want to be very careful who you adapt as your mentor, or whose behavior you want to have. But on the more positive side, you will pick up on the vibes on people that are doing well, the movers and shakers, so to speak. And you will analyze, what is it about Mark? What is it about Jim? What is it about Kieran that why he's held in such high regard, or why he's held in, why people really appreciate him and so on. You'll pick up on the signals, you pick up on the issues, the personality traits, and you try to make them your own. Don't try and copy. It says emulate. Don't even try and do that. Don't try and copy. Make them your own. This is my way of doing it. He does it that way. I like the way he does it, but I try and do it my way, so it becomes your own way of doing things. And as a consequence, when you have these factors in place, it does become a little bit inspiring, seeing how some people actually continue to deliver like that, and it motivates you to want to improve yourself. Hence, reflective practice. You see, this stuff is all intrinsically linked. So your reflective practice modules gives you the skill set, lectures gives you the skill sets to be able to identify and think about yourself and your improvements. So building the network, so we have local public lectures, chambers of commerce, meetup groups, and all that sort of this in the context of entrepreneurs and so on. So local trade fairs, shows, and all that sort of stuff, and public lectures, webinars, and so on. And similarly, you have in college, you have your teams working on these projects. You have your classmates. You're doing the same modules or similar modules. You're doing the same degree. You're going to the same college. That's a network. You're already building it. You started building networks from the day you entered AIT. Are they the same networks today? Probably not. Most likely not. A couple of people might still be around from day one. Nevertheless, you still have a foundation for after AIT, and they're valuable. Now, top organizations for entrepreneurs, you can read that for yourselves. I'm not going through it because it's primarily American based, but suffice to say that you have the County Enterprise Boards here in Ireland, you have the MIRC above up in AIT, Midland Innovation Centre, you have BAN, the Business Angel Network, and so on and so on. You have all of these types of groups that you can join to further your entrepreneurial efforts. So additional networking tips: discover what you can do for someone else. Not what they can do for you, but what you can do for them. And don't do so with the expectation that they're going to return the favor. it will come. There will come a time where you might ask, any chance you could help me out on this? It could be next month, it could be 10 years down the road. But in other words, help people to help themselves, and they'll help you. And that's how it actually works. But if it's I'll do this for you, you do that for me, people get tired of that. They actually break those kind of networks. They know that, oh jeez, if I go to him, he's going to expect a return. Where there's no expectation of a return favor, then your network has a far better chance of surviving, and actually will survive and will flourish in the context of doing things to help people out. You know, ask good questions in your network. Don't ask gobshite questions, you know, because people will question your intelligence then if you're off the mark, so to speak. But asking good questions and unveil your passions, you know, but people will pick up on your passions. You don't have to, when we say unveil them, the way you talk about something, the expressions you use, the tone of voice, the pitch of voice even, can give indications of your passion for something or not. So people pick up on those. So, but don't be afraid to do that, to demonstrate, you know, wow, look, what do you think of this? This is fascinating stuff. I'm really into this, blah, 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 blah. So people can say, Jesus, you're belly of fire. He wants to get to know this stuff really quickly. Next one. Oh, Jesus. Read voraciously, so you have information to draw on during conversations. Wow. Read voraciously. I'm afraid to even ask how many of you read the Financial Times. How many of you read business books? How many of you subscribe to magazines, various magazines, printed or electronic versions, that have anything to do with business? So I'm not going to ask. But that's what it means. You need to be really passionate. Now, not only about business, it could be other subjects. So people like to talk to people who are informed, who have something interesting to say. And the only way you're going to understand or have that skill set is by reading. Sitting down and voraciously reading stuff. And it doesn't come across as higher intelligence. It just comes across as interesting, because you have information, you have a comment, you have an informed opinion about something. Why? Because you've read extensively about particular things. Don't just read the first freaking line of a stupid Facebook page or some post and some crap like that, because it's not depth. Then follow up with personal notes and so on. Keep in contact with people as such, and then prepare a short self-introduction in terms of your entrepreneur. So anytime you go to a meeting, or anytime you're going to any of these seminars and so on and so forth, use the opportunity to tell something about yourself and give some personal information as well, because people see that as an open, trusting, potential network. In other words, that you're not just saying, I work with this company and my job is this, and this. But I'm also from County Tipperary, this, that, and the other. I can this, that, and the other. Throw some personal information in that shows people that you're open, you're honest, you're putting this information in the public domain for them, which means you're saying, trust me, I trust you to know that I'm from Tipperary, for example. You might have had a bad experience or a good experience in Tipperary, but you're throwing out that trust element, and people respect that and they reciprocate. So virtual networks, oh Jesus, here we are. The Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Out loud. No, I'm really scraping the end of the barrel. The important ones there are most certainly LinkedIn, maybe Twitter. The rest, YouTube in terms of a source of information. The rest, not really. Instagram can be used for digital marketing and all that sort of stuff. Not much else about it. But again, in any event, be extremely careful about what you put up onto those platforms. Okay. But the LinkedIn most certainly is extremely powerful. Companies use this to target and recruit people. and they'll look at your profile on LinkedIn. And you should have one, because if nothing exists, well, we don't know about this person, he doesn't exist in LinkedIn. So build credibility, create transparency, build trust, create a rapport with people, and find common interests. And that's how you develop your social networks. So when you begin to build credibility, people says, oh yeah, he's quite informed, we can trust what he's saying, what he has said has actually happened, or and so on and so on. So people build up, you become more noticeable, and you can be seen for the genuine person that you are, and that you're contributing, and that's where you build credibility. As a consequence, you get trust comes in that direction. Create transparency. Because you're building up the credibility and trust, you are becoming more and more transparent. People can see who you are. You're getting around, they're seeing through any perceptions, and they're seeing the real person as such. So critical thinking question, not even going to bother about it. So founding teams, then this is kind of focusing down a bit more onto the entrepreneur side of it. So a founding team is a group of people with a complementary skills and shared sense of commitment coming together in founding an enterprise to build and grow the company. That's so. So again, mixed background teams, different skill sets, competencies, and so on. The more diverse the team is, and they come together, they have a shared sense. They're all passionate about a particular product or service that they want to deliver, or some. Fundamentally, that's the definition of an organization. Group of people that have come together with diverse skills to deliver a product or service. That's an organization. That's what a founding team is as well. So characteristics of a great founding team: industry experience. So you have different backgrounds from different experiences. Few years working here and few years working there. Ability to manage complex problems. That's why I keep telling you guys, understanding critical thinking, how to take things apart and look at things from different perspectives. That's really, really important. I'll be taking this into my retirement and beyond, but I can't emphasize that enough, that you have to be able to stand back. Don't jump to conclusions. Think things thoroughly through, and then say, well, these are different ways of approaching it. This is the experience I had before. This is how it might work the next time around, and so on. Reflective practice helps you become more able and competent at managing complex problems. Ability to cope with pressure. What can I say? Resilience. We all have pressures. How we're able to categorize and prioritize the pressures and then remove them. All pressures are just other anxious points that we need to get out of the way. The sooner you tackle them, address them, get them out of the way, the less anxious you feel, the less pressure essentially you feel. As we say, pressure is for tires. Okay? Or as I used to joke about years ago, the only time I'd ever been under pressure was down in Sean's Bar back in 1984. And I went up to the pub at 11:30 and that night to order a pint at closing time. I put my hand in my pocket and I didn't have enough money to pay for it. I was a few bob short of the price of the pint. That was pressure. Anyway, believe that. But you see what I mean? It's my attitude towards it. Don't allow yourself to get into pressure, under pressure. So drive to overcome obstacles to achieve growth. So your persistence, perseverance, constantly looking, not giving up easily. That's essentially what we're looking at here. So these are all good characteristics, positive side of your personality pushing forward. So how do you think others would categorize you as a member of their networks? What qualities do you possess that would be valuable to others in their networks? Now that's a really interesting critical thinking question. Interesting from the perspective that this is down to you guys. You need to find out and need to know, what are these qualities? Why do people want me in their network or not want me in their network? What is it about me? So you need to understand who you are. Hence this whole approach of understanding self-awareness and all that sort of stuff. What are my qualities? Do I actually understand the qualities that people see in me? And if you do, then you can exploit them, not the people. your own qualities you can improve upon, essentially. So the value stream of diversity, well, I've talked this before, not only differences in demographics, but also career path, goals, viewpoints, educational backgrounds, life experiences. So these are the other dimensions we talked about, ethnicity, gender, age, religion, geographics, socio-economic backgrounds, and social ladders, and all that sort of stuff. Forgetting all that stuff, now you have these other elements or aspects of your diversity. Career path. There are people working on the same career. You're all on the same career path at the moment. You want to get a degree, but what happens then after that? What are your goals after that? Do you all want to go into marketing, for example, or do you all want to work in law, and some law office, or whatever your goals are? And then you have different viewpoints. Some people have higher aspirations than others. And then, of course, you have educational backgrounds. Right now, that doesn't matter to you, but in future will be, where did you get your degree? AIT, DCU, Trinity. Most places don't pay a lot of attention to where you got your degree. So let's cut that one out for starters. The fact that you actually have one is important. Most intelligent recruitment people or managers, that's how they evaluate it. Not the fact that you have, I have a degree for trimmers, or you have a degree from university as opposed to an IT. Oftentimes you find that the ITs have a slightly higher success rating. Why? Because it's more applied than theoretical, generally speaking. But that's changing. It's changing, and it has been in the last number of years. And we're becoming. Why do you think we're calling it a technological university? Because we want to create that perception that what we do is applied learning, and that's what matters. That's what matters to employers. So educational backgrounds, and then life experiences. What did you do while you're in school or in college? What clubs do you belong to? What sports do you play? Do you do any of this sort of stuff? What are your interests? And these all give you experiences that can feed into your team working. If for argument's sake, I played street league football, and then I went into GA, and I went in rugby, and I did this, that, and the other thing. Team sports, so you have understandings of teams. But not everyone is fortunate or athletic enough to play in teams and so on. But they could be part of another team type of activity as such. And then you have, this is just another diagram of these diversities. I need my glasses to just recap on some of these. So the diversity here is personal components, as they call them. Ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, race, age, mental and physical ability. And then you have the social components: education, career path, habits, language, family status, religion, work background, and life experiences. So the stuff that you have direct control of in the green, which is you, and then outside that is the forces that act on you, or the forces that influence you, those social components. And they do influence you. Definitely. So the value of team diversity: homogeneous and heterogeneous teams. Simply, are you all from business backgrounds, or are you heterogeneous? Are you all from different faculties working on the teams, or different backgrounds? Preferably heterogeneous will work very strongly in most companies. But for example, if you're in a legal company, for example, you'll all have you'll all have law degrees, you'll all have solicitors degree qualifications, lawyers, and so on and so forth. So in that context, it might be homogeneous, but you might have specializations in different aspects of law as such. So you begin to become heterogeneous. So if you're setting up companies and all this sort of stuff, different towards defending the local fellow who's over the limit on drink and so on. Groupthink and healthy conflict. Be careful of that. Groupthink usually is caused by a couple of individuals who are louder than others, and everyone starts to buy into that groupthink. And it's like any of these social network pages, or the yellow vests and so on and so forth. They have a particular view, and that's a groupthink, and dare you question it. But healthy conflict, to be able to stand up and say, look, here's my point of view, here's my opinion, here's my argument on this and so on, and people respect it. So as you end up deriving better solutions, and then both bring in more insight and ideas into play. So having these heterogeneous, healthy conflict elements, you can have better insights, better ideas, better solutions, looking at problems from multiple perspectives and coming up with more efficient and effective solutions, cost effective evenly. So think of an activity, a video game, social TV, media, TV, internet, surfing, that you could cut back on to pursue personal growth. Seek out professional opportunities and build relationships, your network in other words. So set a goal to cut back on the time spent on one of those activities, gaming, and determine what activity, reading, research, conversation, etc. will take its place. So getting balance, getting productive balance into your lives, that's all that's suggesting. Now, of course, I'll sit down and watch TV. I'll sit down and I'll watch sci-fi movies. Why? I like to close down. I think these are totally ridiculous and they're not real, but it gets me away from all of the stuff in the real world. But I only need a slice of that. Or I'll go for a cycle. Gives myself time. It gives me time to reflect and me time. Downtime. Take a brain dump. So the 6 traits of a healthy conflict: develop multiple alternatives, as I mentioned, enriching the level of debate, share community agreed upon goals, inject humor into the decision process. What can I say? You always have to have a sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously. No one else does. I mean, your signs of it, for Christ's sake. How we got there? We started with 17. We have 13 people now. Mother of Jesus. Listen, their loss, not mine. So maintain a balanced power structure and then resolve issues without forcing consensus. Listen to all the opinions. Make sure that everyone has had a word or has an input such that we have a consensus and we've exhausted all possible avenues of discussion and we've finally agreed on something, a consensus. So that's it, folks. That's the happy days. And where's Matty Hayes when you need him? And let's see if this is all working. Yes, this is working. And here we are, back to the land of the living. That's it for this evening, folks. Not bad. 2 hours again in an hour. There's this lecture. There's 2 more going up. There'll be another 1 or 2 going up there. And that's it. So the remainder of your lectures, you can work on your teams. You can work together to finish out your group assignment for next week and so on. We won't even have a lecture next week because the material will be uploaded to Moodle. And I'm serious. I'm not going to send messages every time I upload something. It's up to you to take the responsibility to go up there and check what video numbers now, what videos has he uploaded more, and read or go in and view the bloody things. Takes me a lot of time, takes you time to look at them. Use the time, for crying out loud. Okay, you've only got a couple of weeks left and you're out the back door and onto bigger and better things. Okay, folks, I'll leave it at that. Any questions, comments, insults, jokes even? I talked about humor. You have to have a sense of humor. No? Okay, we'll call it a day. Thursday. All right, folks, listen, I'll let you go. Take it easy and see you.
Right, thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. Bye, 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 bye.